He didn't even call me. After everything. After the deployments, the surgeries, the years I spent dodging bullets and burying brothers in arms. I opened my phone one December night and saw one message from my father. Just 10 words. Don't bother coming this Christmas. Best you stay away this year. No hello. No, how are you? No, we miss you. Just a sentence that read more like a severance notice than a father's hand. It was the kind of cold that sinks beneath your skin before you realize it's there. The kind of cold you can't dress against. I remember sitting in my small one-bedroom apartment in Fayetteville, staring at the blinking Christmas lights I had taped along the window. They flickered weakly against the glass. Red, green, gold, their cheer mocked me. I kept wondering what I'd done to deserve this exile. My mom didn't chime in. My brother didn't say a word. It was as if they had all signed some unspoken agreement to cut me out right before the holidays. I typed just one word back. Fine. And I meant it. Not the kind of fine that secretly begs for someone to ask again. No, this was the final kind. The kind that closes a door so quietly you don't realize it's locked until you're standing outside with the cold in your lungs. I closed my laptop, deleted the airline ticket I'd bought 3 weeks earlier, poured myself a glass of red wine. I raised it to the blinking lights and whispered a toast to family. 5 days later, I woke to 10 missed calls. 1 from my brother, 1 from my father, 4 from my mother, and 1 from their lawyer. That last one made my heart stop, because by then it was too late to undo what I had already set in motion, too late to unsay what they had said. Too late to unwrite the letter I had mailed. I wasn't always this woman. Not the one who mailed formal letters and signed them with finality. Once I was just a girl who wanted her father to notice her. I was 18 when I enlisted. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would make him proud. On the day I shipped out, he didn't hug me. He didn't say he loved me. He just muttered, "Try not to embarrass yourself out there." That was his love language. Criticism disguised as advice. But truthfully, I hadn't joined to win his love. I joined because I needed to prove to myself that I was worth something, because home had never felt safe. Not with the way he looked at me, like I was a burden he hadn't asked for. When I made sergeant, I flew home that Christmas. I stood in the doorway with the stripes on my shoulder, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for pride. He asked me to shovel the driveway before I'd even taken off my boots. No congratulations, no smile. Just an order barked out like a command. And my mother? She was a ghost of the woman I needed her to be. Always wringing her hands, whispering, "Just don't make him angry." She lived like a candle in a draft, flickering toward extinction. My brother, Tyler, learned early that siding with Dad meant peace. So he followed him like a shadow, and me, I played the good soldier. I called on birthdays, sent flowers on anniversaries, mailed checks when the roof leaked or the car broke down. They never asked where the money came from, never asked what it cost me. They just cashed it, sometimes sent an emoji back. Sometimes not even that. Still, every year, I hoped. Hoped that one Christmas I would walk through the door and feel welcome. That one holiday, my seat at the table wouldn't be tolerated, but cherished. This year was supposed to be different. I was finally discharged. I had my papers, a modest pension, a tired heart. I wanted to bake cookies with Mom, hear Tyler talk about his new job. Maybe, just maybe, get a pat on the back from Dad. Instead, that text. And with it, something inside me broke. That night, searching for distraction, I dug through old military email archives. Files, forms, contracts, remnants of a life lived on borrowed time. And there it was, a digital copy of a document I had signed 5 years earlier. Dad had asked me during one of my rare leaves to co-sign a second mortgage on the house. I was 25, young, exhausted, desperate for his approval. He called it a technicality. I signed without reading. I clicked the file open, slower this time. My breath grew shallow as the words glowed on the screen. In the event of primary borrower default or voluntary transfer, the cosigner assumes controlling interest over the property until full loan maturity. Controlling interest. I leaned back, stunned. My father had spent years cutting me out, reminding me that I didn't belong. But on paper, I wasn't just his daughter. I was his majority co-owner. No, scratch that. I wasn't his daughter at all. I was his landlord, and suddenly, everything I thought I had lost, belonging, power, a seat at the table, shifted. Because while he had exiled me, he had forgotten one truth. I wasn't powerless anymore, and that was the moment the story really began. Because when a daughter finally stops begging for her father's love, when she wears a different kind of armor, when she realizes the house that locked her out now legally belongs to her, things will never be the same again. I stared at the blinking lights one last time, the glow painting my face in colors that no longer felt warm. And I thought, how dangerous can a daughter become? When the only home that ever exiled her is now hers to claim? I didn't tell them right away. That would have been too easy, too expected. Instead, I let the silence sit. Let them wonder why my seat at the table was suddenly empty that Christmas. Why the girl they'd discarded had finally stopped circling back, like some stray dog waiting at the door. I poured all of that silence into a letter. Not a text, not an email. A real letter. Handwritten. Ink pressed deep into paper as if my hand wanted to carve every word into permanence. It was short, blunt, final. Per the attached documents, I now hold majority control of the property located at 421 Monroe Street. Effective immediately, I am asserting my rights. Please direct further correspondence to my attorney. I didn't sign it with love. Didn't soften it with hope. Just my full name in black ink. Then I folded it carefully, slid it into a white envelope, and sealed it shut. I walked it to the mailbox at the corner, the winter air burning my lungs. When I let go, when the envelope dropped into that dark metal box, I swear I felt something uncoil inside me. For the first time in 30 years, I wasn't the one waiting. They were. The call started 3 days later. At first, just one from my brother. His voice on the voicemail sounded almost rehearsed, as if he was trying to strike the right tone. Friendly, casual. Hey, just wondering how you're doing. Haven't heard from you. Call me back. But I didn't. 2 days later, my mother's number lit up my phone. No voicemail. Just missed calls stacking like dominoes. Then came my father. His voice was gravel wrapped in fury. Rachel, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this stops now. You hear me? This stops. I replayed it 3 times. Each time my pulse slowed. Each time my resolve deepened. Because in his voice I finally heard something new. Not power, not authority, fear. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Sanders, called me the next morning. They're panicking, she said. Already contacted us twice. Threats, bargaining, denial, the whole spectrum. What do we do? I asked. Her laugh was dry, like paper catching fire. We wait, we let them sweat. But I need you to be ready. Because when the time comes, they'll play dirty. Christmas Eve, I didn't go to their house. Didn't drive the 2 hours north the way I'd planned weeks earlier. Instead, I booked a small cabin on the edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Nothing fancy, just pine walls, a fireplace, and silence so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. I brought a bottle of whiskey, a journal, and the courage I'd been stockpiling for years. That night, as snow stitched itself across the trees outside, I sat by the fire and wrote everything I'd never said out loud, every wound, every betrayal. I wrote about the little girl who once shoveled driveways for a smile that never came, about the soldier who sent paychecks home only to be told she wasn't welcome, about the woman who finally stopped asking for love and started demanding respect. Each word felt like a match struck. By the time the fire burned down to embers, I wasn't mourning anymore. I was preparing. The new year brought war. My father's lawyer sent a letter contesting my claim, full of bluster, legal jargon, and empty threats. Sanders tore it apart in under an hour. "See here?" she said, tapping a paragraph with her pen. "They're trying to argue duress, that you didn't know what you were signing. But it's weak. You were 25, sergeant in the army, financially independent. This won't stick." And still part of me trembled, because this wasn't just paper, this was blood. Every time I opened a new email or letter, my chest clenched. Not because I feared losing, but because I feared becoming them. Cold, ruthless, capable of cutting out your own flesh and calling it justice. Was I becoming him, or was I finally becoming me? 1 week later, Sanders called again. "They're folding," she said. "Your father doesn't want this dragged through court. He knows you'll win. What's his offer?" I asked, bracing myself. There was a pause. Then, "He'll vacate by spring, quietly. But he's asking for dignity. Wants you to let him frame it as his decision." I closed my eyes. Dignity. The same thing he never once offered me. March arrived with gray skies and wet ground. I drove to Monroe Street alone. My boots sank into the mud as I walked up the familiar path. The house looked smaller than I remembered, as if time had hollowed it out. Paint peeling, gutters sagging, a place that had once been fortress, now just wood and brick waiting for its next chapter. I didn't knock. I stood on the porch and listened. The faint hum of a TV inside. My father's shadow crossing the window. My mother's figure, small and tense. The door didn't open. They knew I was there. They chose silence. Fine. I slid the new deed, notarized and final, under the door. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't break. 30 years, I whispered to the wood. And this is how it ends. Then I turned, walked back to my car, and drove away. But the story wasn't over. Because papers might declare ownership, but ghosts still linger. And this house, this family, they had left me haunted. I knew the hardest part wasn't winning it back. It was deciding what to do with it once it was mine. That night, I lay awake in my apartment, the new deed spread across the table like a map of old wounds. And I thought, what do you do with a house full of memories that never loved you back? The first time I unlocked the front door of the Monroe house, my hand hesitated on the key. It was early spring. The grass had just begun to green, though patches of frost still clung stubbornly to the shaded soil. Birds were louder than I remembered. Or maybe I was just hearing them for the first time without the static of fear in my ears. The door creaked when it opened. The smell hit me first. Stale air mixed with old carpet, cigarette smoke buried deep in the walls, faint traces of my mother's lavender cleaner trying to mask the rest. I stepped inside, and the house exhaled around me. Everything was still there. The recliner where Dad had sat like a king. The dining table with a leg that never stood straight. The chipped banister I used to trail my hand along as a child, always afraid a splinter would pierce my skin. And then, the silence. It wasn't peace, not yet. It was absence. I walked from room to room, touching the edges of a life that had never wanted me. My mother's sewing kit sat untouched on the sideboard. My father's boots lined the entryway, worn, stubborn. Tyler's old trophies collecting dust on the shelf. Not one photograph of me. Not a single trace that I had ever belonged here. That was when the weight of it all pressed against me. Not just the ownership, not the deed, not the hollow victory, but the truth. This house had never been mine. Not really. It had been a cage. And now, standing in the middle of the living room, keys in my pocket, silence all around, I realized something. Winning the house wasn't the point. Reclaiming myself was. I started small. One bag, one box at a time. Out went the recliner. Out went the trophies, the faded curtains, the memories sewn into every nail and floorboard. Some things I donated. Others I burned in the rusted fire pit out back. I watched the smoke curl into the spring sky and thought of all the nights I'd prayed for escape, all the mornings I'd steeled myself for his voice, and each time the flames rose, I felt lighter. By summer the house looked different. Fresh paint, white trim, sunlight pouring through new windows. I planted lavender by the porch steps, the way my mother once dreamed but never dared. I named it the Monroe House, not after them, but after me. A reclamation, a reminder that the story of a house is not written by those who wound you, but by the one who finally chooses what to do with it. And I chose to make it a refuge. I opened its doors to women like me, women who had carried scars no one could see, women who had been told to stay quiet, to stay small, to stay away. Here they found beds to rest in, meals to share, walls that didn't echo with rage. They found silence that healed, not silence that punished. And in their laughter, their tears, their quiet resilience, I found something too. I found home. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on the porch steps with a mug of coffee and watch the fireflies rise. I think of my father, of the message he sent, of the girl who once shoveled snow for his approval. I don't hate him anymore. Hate is just another chain, but I don't forgive him either. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a debt I owe. What I carry instead is clarity, the knowledge that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it simply survives. The Monroe House stands now as proof. Proof that we can inherit pain and still choose what to build from it. Proof that sometimes the greatest act of defiance is not revenge, but transformation. And when I lock the door at night, when I turn off the porch light and step inside, I no longer feel like a stranger, because for the first time in my life, I belong here. And maybe that's the truth we never admit. Sometimes the home we fight hardest to claim isn't a place at all. It's the person we finally allow ourselves to become.